completing the square. Sometimes it's very easy to solve for a trinomial, where we can factor the trinomial and set the equals 0 and get the solutions. So if I factor that, I can see that's going to be x minus 3, x plus 2 equals 0. And setting both those equal to 0, x minus 3 equals 0, and x plus 2 equals 0. I get x equals 3 and x equals negative 2. So that's fine, that's easy. Well, sometimes you get a trinomial that you won't be able to solve, such as x squared minus 10x plus 1 equals 0. So again, if you try to factor this way, you factor the 1. There's nothing that a 1 will do to get you that 10 for the b term. So you have to scratch that, and you have to complete the square. To complete the square, you take the b term, and you're going to cut it in half, so that'll be a 5, and then square it. So you take the 10, divide by 2, you get the 5, and then you square the 5, you get 25. Now what do you do with that to complete the square? Well, now you're going to add that to both sides of the equation. So it's like this. We will take the x squared minus 10x plus 25. Now this 1's here. Let me just leave it here for a second. Now I added 25 to the left side of the equation. You've got to do the same to the other side so it stays balanced. Don't just hang it here and hope that you get the right answer. You got to keep things balanced. All right, so let's get rid of this 1 now, because this number was chosen to help us factor this x squared and 10x. So let's keep going out by subtraction. That's pretty easy. And now you got this. Plus 25 equals 24. Now what do we do with that? Well, we can factor this now, because we create the perfect square. So we know we're going to have a square binomial. This is just the x, and that's a 5. Again, by doing this, we're always going to have a plus or minus here to get us the plus sign here. That's why you always make it a plus 25. Never make it a subtract to both sides. It's always addition. So, and this is a negative 10, so this would be a minus 5. And if you just do the FOIL on that quick, you'll see you get that. And you still have the 24 on the right. Now we take the square root of both sides, and what's left on the left-hand side is x minus 5. Now on the right, be careful, you have the square root of 24. Whenever you're solving with square roots like that, you've got to make sure you have a plus and minus, because there's two values that'll get you a 24. It's almost 5, it's 4 something, or negative 4 something squared. So this is going to be square root of 24. Now this simplifies further, which we'll do in a second. And you got to get this 5 to the other side. That's pretty easy to do. You just add the 5 to both sides. And put that first. So you have x equals 5 plus and minus square root of 24. Now again, you have to simplify this to a lower, and try to find a perfect square. I think 4 and 6 will work nicely. So x equals 5, square root of 4, square root of 6. Always put my perfect squares first. And of course, square root of 4 is 2. And then we're at the answer, or the fully simplified version of this, 2 square root of 6. So there's 2 answers. Now this is roughly, I don't know, 2 something. But you multiply this square root of 6 times 2 and add it to 5. And square root of 6 times 2 minus, or subtract that from 5. Those are your 2 answers. Okay. Well, sometimes you'll have a trinomial that is, the a term is not a perfect square, such as, let's see, 3x squared minus 36x plus 150 equals 0. All right, I got some big numbers here. I can divide all these by 3. So when I divide by 3 in any kind of equation, every term gets divided or multiplied. This is division. So I have x squared minus 12x plus 50 equals, and that's just 0. All right, a little bit of thought here because I have 50. So 150, 2 and 25, 5 and 10. Well, yeah, you know what? None of these values will get me my 12. So I've got to complete the square. So again, here we go. Again, what we did though, by getting, dividing by 3, we now have a perfect square here. We got to put a perfect square in the constant so we can do as we showed earlier. So I'm going to x squared minus 12x, take half of that, 6, square it, 36, plus 36. This plus 50 is still here. I didn't move it yet. I added 36 to the left. I better add 36 to the right as well. Now I'm going to get rid of this 50 by subtraction. So I'll subtract 50, subtract 50. And I have x squared minus 12x plus 36 equals a negative 14. Okay, so now we know what to do with this. We created this, perfect square. X minus 6 squared equals negative 14. Pardon me. All right, just as we did before, we're going to take the square root of both sides and start cleaning things up. Now you have something interesting going here with this negative, but it's x minus 6 equals plus and minus. Now this is negative 1 times 14, so I'm going to show you these little steps here. Square root of negative 1, square root of 14. Those get you the negative 14 in the radical. I'm going to move the 6 over by addition, add 6, and add 6. Oops. So it's x equals 6 plus and minus. Now this becomes the letter I, and this is simplified as far as it goes, so that's just square root of 14. And there's your answer. You have an imaginary number, so you can't get a real number out of this. All right, one more thing with completing the square. It's good old vertex form. If you recall, we graphed a lot of these. Vertex form is y equals a x minus h plus k. Vertex form. If you recall, the h and the k gave you the vertex. So let's just give you an example. This is a 5, negative 5 and 2. Negative 5, you change the sign, be a positive 5, and positive 2, you go up to it, this would be your vertex, positive slope, you graph up like that. Well, we can convert standard form by completing the square, get to vertex form. So when you see the equation like this, it's going to be like y equals, there's no equal to 0, pardon me, x squared plus 12x plus 37. Pretty quickly, you can determine that there's no way to get 37 to be the 26. Pardon me again. So we're going to have to complete the square for this portion in here. So here we go. So watch how I do this. I'm going to say y. I'm going to leave a little space here because I know whatever I find to complete the square here, I have to add to the y side. So I'll leave a little space here for it to add to it in a minute. Now I'm going to work on just this to complete the square. So I have x squared plus 12x. Now to complete the square, I take half of that, 6, square it, 36, and add it to this side. 36 was added here. We'll hold it. If I add it to the right side, I got to add to the left. So here's my plus 36 here. And don't forget the 37 that was already there, just bring it on down. Now again, this is going to be heading towards giving us our x minus h. So when we do our factoring of this, you're going to have y plus 36 equals x plus 6 squared plus 37. And really just one more step and we're done. We subtract the 36 and look at this. Y equals x plus 6 squared plus 1. Again, if you're going to graph it, you'd move 6 to the left, over here, and up 1. So you graph there, and then you're probably go like that. All right, we have one more problem for you, and that's going to be some geometry. So here we go. We have a triangle, and there's our height, altitude. The area is 40. A equals 40. Square units, whatever they are, doesn't matter. The height is x. The base is x plus 4. Okay. And completing a square, we're going to try to solve this. So we know the area of a triangle. Hopefully we know that A equals 1/2 times base times height. I'm going to get rid of that. A is 40. I'm going to plug the values in here now. So 40 equals 1/2. Base is x plus 4. and the height is x. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'd like to get rid of that half. Fractions freak me out. So one term on this side, one here, I'll multiply the entire thing by 2. I get 80 equals x plus 4 times x. Distribute the x. 80 equals x squared plus 4x. And I'll see if I can get this 80 to work, so I'll subtract. It may work, but I want to show you how to do it by completing the square. So we'll leave the 80 there. And to complete the square, of course, you just take half of that and square it. So half of 4 is 2. Square 2, you get 4. So we add 4 here, completing the square. If you added 4 here, you add 4 on this side. And we go to 84 equals x plus 2 squared. Take the square root of both sides, and we'll have x plus 2 equals square root of 84, plus and minus. Subtract the 2 from both sides. I'll just rearrange it here. X equals negative 2 plus or minus square root of 84. And I guess 4 goes into that, so we can factor that down a little bit for ourselves. X equals negative 2 plus or minus square root of 4 times 21. 4 times 21 is 84. That becomes a 2. So X equals negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 21. And there's your two answers.